You know how you see a local group doing amazing work in your community, and you kind of wonder, wait, are they a charity or some kind of business? It's not always so simple, right? You've got co-ops, NGOs, social enterprises, and honestly, the lines between them can get super blurry. So in this explainer, we're going to pull out a map for this whole doing good universe and make those lines sharp and clear.
So this is the big question, isn't it? On the surface, they all seem to have these incredible goals, but under the hood, they're actually completely different machines, each built for a very specific job. So what really sets them apart? Let's dive in and really unpack the differences. All right, first things first, before we can compare them, we need to get our definition straight. We're going to meet the three major players in this space and figure out exactly what makes each of them tick. Let's start with the one you might hear about the most, the social organization. Okay. So when you think of social organizations, and you'll often hear them called NGOs, think of groups that are driven purely by a cause. These are voluntary, non-commercial teams. Their whole world revolves around things like community service or fighting for a specific social issue. Making money isn't even on the radar. Their entire goal is to take action for the good of the community. Next up, we have cooperatives. Now, this is where the whole idea of ownership gets completely flipped on its head. A co-op is basically a business that's owned and controlled by its own members. Yep, the very same people who use its services. And the guiding principle here is pure democracy. One member gets one vote. And the whole point? To make sure the economic benefits go directly back to those members. And finally, we have the hybrid model, the social enterprise. Now, this is an organization that, from the outside, looks and feels a lot like a regular business. It uses all the usual commercial strategies to make money, but, and this is absolutely the key part, its primary purpose is to solve a social or environmental problem. Any profit it makes isn't for shareholders. It's the fuel that gets plowed right back in to keep the social mission running strong. Okay, so now we have our basic definitions down. But to really truly see what makes them so different, we've got to put them side by side. We're going to compare them on three crucial things: their core purpose, who actually holds the power, and the paperwork that makes it all legit. This table really boils it all down beautifully. Just look at that rationale row. For a co-op, it's all about self-help, taking care of its members' needs. For a social enterprise, it's about using the market to achieve a social mission. And for a social organization, it's pure, straightforward advocacy and community service. And you can see how the ownership flows right from that. Co-ops, owned by members. Social organizations, governed by a community board. And social enterprises, well, their ownership can look a few different ways. But the one thing that never changes is that the social mission always has to come first. Now this points to another massive difference. Who are they answering to? Who's holding them accountable? In the Philippines, for instance, co-ops have their own dedicated government body, the Cooperative Development Authority. Social organizations, on the other hand, report to the Department of Social Welfare and Development. And social enterprises? They often register with the SEC just like any other company. And this isn't just about red tape. This legal structure literally defines what they can and must do. Okay, this might be the biggest question of all. What about the money? When there's a surplus at the end of the year, where does it go? You'll notice I said surplus, not always profit. And where that money is directed tells you literally everything you need to know about an organization's DNA. So let's follow the money. For cooperatives, this whole process is actually spelled out in the law. They can't just do whatever they want with their net surplus. First, they have to put money aside into legally required reserves. These are for things like strengthening the business, educating members, and helping the community. It's only after all of that is taken care of that the rest of the money is returned to the members. It's called a patronage refund, which is basically their share of the success based on how much they used the co-op. The benefit flows directly back to the member owners. And here's what that actually looks like. By law, at least 10% has to go into a reserve fund, another 10% into an education fund, and 3% into a community development fund. So you see, a pretty big chunk is totally hardwired to build up the co-op and its community before the lion's share. That big 77% can go back to the members who made it happen in the first place. For a social enterprise, the rule is much simpler but just as powerful. Any profit or surplus, it doesn't go into anyone's pockets. It gets reinvested directly back into the organization's social mission. The goal here is sustainability. The business engine exists to fund the social impact engine, and that creates this amazing self-sustaining loop of doing good. And finally, we have social organizations, which operate under a super strict rule called the non-distribution constraint. Think of this as a legal firewall. It means that absolutely no part of the organization's income can ever be handed out as dividends or profits to any person. Every single cent has to be used to push the organization's social welfare goals forward. End of story.
So we've gone through ownership, rules, how they handle money. But why does any of this stuff actually matter? Well, because each of these models is like a different kind of vehicle, and each one is specifically engineered for a totally different journey toward making the world a better place.
So let's wrap this up. Cooperatives, they're the vehicles for member-driven self-reliance and true democratic ownership. Social enterprises, they're the bridges, perfectly designed to connect the worlds of business and charity to create lasting, sustainable impact. And social organizations, they are the purists, built to lock every single resource into serving the cause, completely shielded from any profit motive. So as we see those lines between making a profit and having a purpose get blurrier and blurrier, it leaves us with a really fascinating question. Which one of these models, the democratic co-op, the sustainable social enterprise, or the mission-locked social organization, is ultimately going to define the future of doing good? It's definitely something to think about.